Friday in class, in the workshop that you gave, I think your theme was mobility and flexibility. Mm-hmm. And which was very interesting, because I had never ever pondered the difference. I'd never really dug that deep into that, and it was very, very interesting. And I wanted to ask you, in terms of being seasoned, mature practitioners, as Billy Conrad would say, but even more so, what does mobility and flexibility mean for a practitioner that's 20 or 30 years old as opposed to somebody that's 60?
Well, first of all, like in Friday night's class, I was trying to just define the terms that I was using, because these terms are used synonymously. I've used them synonymously too, but I don't think they don't mean the same thing, and at least not in movement science. So first of all, I wanted to just be clear on the way I was using the language, and that flexibility, like there's a difference between active ranges of motion and passive ranges of motion, like how you could move at a joint range of motion, like what it's capable of doing. And so passive ranges of motion, when you take your belt or somebody moves your leg, they come and they adjust you, or you just move your arm with your other arm, versus your arm being able to go there itself. Right. And you're able to engage you're able to handle load, you're able to be active and generate force even in those ranges of motion. So that is mobility. Flexibility is just how far something can be moved, not how far you can move it itself, like your leg, pick it up itself rather than pulling it up with a strap. Right. Okay? So, and stability, so that was the other piece, is that in a certain sense, stability and mobility are kind of the same thing, because mobility, the definition I was using, is your ability to control your movement, right? Whatever range of motion that you're moving in, that you can control that. You have the ability to engage the muscles, you can move the limb by itself. Stability being your ability to control your movement. Stability being your ability to return to a certain joint configuration or orientation after something's disturbed you, a perturbation, or, like if you're in tree pose, the stability isn't holding the pose. The stability is your ability to sense when because the body, there's always movement. Your heart's beating, you're breathing, there's always movement, that everything's, and it's dynamic. Balance is a dynamic thing. Stability is a dynamic thing. So, and to me, I've, have different opinions at different times, but right now, I just don't see it as so different. Like when maybe at this time in my life, I have more appreciation. I certainly do have more appreciation for mobility, as defined as your capacity to stay strong in your ranges of motion. Because a lot of the injuries that I've seen as a teacher, things that, have happened to me, have come from the opposite of just trying to either bend more, go further, or in some cases, a teacher moving my body
into something.
Yes, that's happened. And I am not, I just don't find that, like, I'm interested in useful ranges of motion. I definitely use a, strap to do certain poses, and I don't have a problem with that. And working on passive ranges of motion is good too. It's not like it's bad. But I do think that that as we age, that sometimes there's a greater appreciation for strength, and that being strong in a wider range of motion is desirable. It's helpful. You can do more things. You can, you're capable of moving and, hiking and running and dancing and doing your yoga, and you don't have to try to keep everything safe and protected, and like your body is some fragile thing, because it really isn't. It's robust. It's self-regulating. It's resilient. If we nurture that, if we support that,
right,
practice in a way
yeah.
to, yes. And I think sometimes when we're young and, in our 20s or something, we just don't, there hasn't been enough stuff that's gone wrong. You know what I mean? Like, for some, yeah. But, that's the thing. Like, you just live long enough. Then I'm not that old, but I'm in my 50s. And stuff happens, That just, like I said on Friday night, rest assured, stuff happens. And there's, I think, I have an appreciation for keeping myself as engaged with the whole thing, and living and supporting my body in that, supporting my mind in that. Learning new things, I think, is really important. Getting out of your comfort zone.
Absolutely.
And like not just saying, "Oh, it's because I'm getting older." Like, I just don't like. Yeah.
And there was a passage that BKS talked about that. That's so inspiring, because he says it like it is. It's you've got to be courageous.
Yeah, and he also infamously said, "I am not a quitter.
Yeah,
like, I am not a stopper." He just didn't. And look, he was in his 90s and he was still chest like a child, like seriously like a child. Yeah. That open, and his eyes really sharp and his mind sharp, and wow, like he was interested and involved and engaged. Right up to the end of his life. That is, to me, that's something to, with, and not everyone's going to be there's lots of different things that can come along and disrupt that. But still,
and
no
not
matter.
Even have that nature to begin with.
Yeah, but I think it's something we cultivate. I think it's something we can cultivate, to be present and engaged with things as they are. But, I think you can have a sense of possibility and acceptance at the same time. Like, I don't think acceptance is resignation. But I also think that everything is always changing. That's true, right? So we do have some say in the direction of some of that change. So staying engaged and making choices based on values that you choose, and not, and sometimes just doing something. People say, don't do that, but you're like, maybe you want to, so go for it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because really, this is it. Like, maybe this is it.
Exactly. And this might be the last time that you can taste that.
It might be.
Taste that movement.
It might be.
That amplitude. So, yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I've said to my students on a couple of occasions, and they've looked at me like it's really macabre, the way that I'm talking. But no, it's not that.
Yeah.
Because I remember when, I broke my foot, and having taken for granted being able to walk up those stairs every day.
Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden you can't. And it's like,
oh,
damn,
yeah.
Okay, well, my leg could have been cut off.
Right.
And then it would have been over. And then
right.
it's being able to be able to taste that every day.
Yeah.
And to see how far you can swing out.
And then see how resilient you are when things do happen, and that there is a way. There is. You see amazing practitioners and people who have had limbs amputated, and they're have had devastating cancer surgeries and just all kinds of stuff, and they're practicing, and they blow your mind, what they're able to do, and traveling and all kinds of stuff, and I just say, people they are capable of so much more, we all are. And it doesn't mean, we're not, I think it's a lot of self-compassion is necessary, actually, because you have to give yourself permission to be awkward, to fail, to struggle, to ask for help, and then you're not going to beat yourself up when you're still you're trying to get it, it's not easy, but what other choice do we have, really,
Yeah.
We're going to be full in whatever we do. And I think that's what I really learned from BKS Iyengar, is to be full, in whatever you do, to bring your heart to it, to bring your mind to it, your body to it, to bring the totality of yourself to whatever you're doing. Like whatever you're doing, and that brings energy. That's, that brings joy, and it's, and I think he's an example of what that is, or what was, he had a very full life.
Yes. Speaking of him and his life and then his death, in August of 2014, what has shifted since his death in terms of the tradition of Iyengar yoga in the world? As far as you can see it.
Yeah.
What you felt.
I feel like it's, I think it's just like the life cycle. It's sort of I think back when in New York City, when we lost our senior teacher Mary Dawn, when she died in 2008, and how our community had to grow up. Kind of, it's like mom's gone, and that, like, having lost my father, and my brother and I had to move my mom into an assisted living facility. That was another challenge that we had. And I think that these things, and then when Guruji died, it feels like this is the thing that we all have to do. We just carry on, and we grow up, and we honor and appreciate those that have come before us, and what they taught us, and the life that they gave us. But then you have to grow into being it's like generative. Then your role is to support others, to grow, like for me as a teacher, to help younger generations of teachers grow into their adulthood as a teacher. And that it's just it's a cycle, it's continuous. So I think we're growing up. I think, certainly that I'm like, there are teachers that were much closer, they were close to BKS, and they're in their, 70s and 80s now. And they might have a different perspective on it. But I feel like it's kind of like adolescence or something. Do you know? Because we're maybe later than that. Like it's sort of where you're kind of at this kind precipice
like
of
teenage, the oldest one that has to
there's
look
been
out for the youngins.
Like, and you realize, oh wait, okay, we're always going to be learning. That's it. You're always going to be learning. It's always going to be beginning. That it should be, actually, that you're always beginner, always. Do you know? And that the learning doesn't stop just because you finished grade school or high school or college. The learning doesn't stop at that point. And so the learning is going to keep going. And even when the teacher is gone, when that teacher is gone, because the teachers are everywhere and the teachings are everywhere. And so, but there's a growing into that realization that you have to be self-reliant in a way. You have to initiate your own plan of how you're going to continue to grow and how you're going to continue to learn, and you're going to, support yourself in that.
Right.
Do that course online if that's, like, I like to study. But as I travel a lot, I have mentor I work with in New York, and then I do a lot of work studying, biomechanics, and, just I'm very interested in the body and body-mind relationship and connection. So I have to keep that sadhana, that piece, which is different than my practice. Totally, they're related. But you have to keep initiating your own growth and challenging yourself in that. And I think you can't be dependent on your teacher, parent, telling you what to do, to practice this, to practice that. No, you have to, have some self-direction, And it doesn't mean that you're not also seeking and taking in information from other sources. Of course, that's essential. That's so important. And to open one's mind to different perspectives, really important. And I think that's maybe too what happens is that you kind of open your eyes to there's a whole world out here, and there's a whole, what if there's these important things, and I think there are really important things in Iyengar yoga. How does that get transmitted now? How do we do that? How do we keep transmitting what each one of us might see as the important thing? Because I'm sure everybody sees something different. There's always another view of the elephant, But whatever you feel was really important in his legacy, And then in Iyengar yoga, like, how are you going to transmit that to people who don't know who B.K.'s Iyengar was? Don't care. Do you know what I mean? They're like, I don't know how many people tell me that I say the name and they're like, who's that? I'll say Light on Yoga. They're like, what's that? And then it's like, okay, wow, so stepping up to the plate, you know what I mean? And continuing to study and learn and hold that and, educate yourself and then communicate it in a way where has an impact on people. That's a lot of responsibility. But I think it's our responsibility now that B.K.'s Iyengar is gone, because we can't just defer or just not ask ourselves the harder questions.
Thank you so much for coming and visiting my channel. I hope you enjoyed the interview. And if you have any comments or questions, you can leave them down in the comment section below. You can also give me a thumbs up if you liked it. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, why not? Subscribe and maybe share it with somebody. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I gotta go visit Twitter. So until the next time, take care of each other, take care of yourselves, and namaste.